Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Adnan Aiman, and in this presentation, my friends and I are going to explain on sustainability and environmental policy. First and foremost, what is the policy about? Sustainability is defined as the ability for something to be maintained at a certain level or rate. Hence, environmental sustainability means to avoid the depletion of natural resources. The purpose of the policy is to preserve the natural resources of the country from ever depleting, as well as to sustain the well-being of the citizen of our country, Malaysia.
My name is Muhammad Najmi and I'm going to proceed with environmental issue, which is mining. Basically, we only focus on environmental issue that is happening in Malaysia. Okay, for mining, bauxite mining in Kuantan, Pahang started in early 2013. It began with small-scale mining in Balok and later expanded to other areas, namely Bukit Goh, Bukit Sagu, and Sungai Karang. The Indonesian government started to develop a domestic metal processing industry, and as a result of this initiative, a bauxite ban was put in place. The bauxite production in Malaysia was merely 208,770 tons in 2013 and 900 increased to 963,000 tons in 2014, and it keeps increasing throughout the years. There are a few causes of mining. First, increase in the price of the resources itself. The worldwide price for precious metals like golds and many other resources have increased significantly over the last decades. This makes it even more profitable to extract resources out of the ground, since these resources can be sold for higher prices on the world market. The next causes for mining is the population growth. With an increasing population, the overall world consumption levels also increase. In order to be able to provide enough goods for the world population, resources have to be extracted at large scale. Since our demand for all this good increases at a steady rate, we have to increase our mining activities in order to provide these goods to our population. Besides that, advancement in technologies also contribute in the mining. With our nowadays technology, it is easier and more profitable to extract resources out of the ground compared to past centuries where mining was much more difficult. Since there were no machines and workers had to work quite hard in order to be able to extract resources. Therefore, advancement in technology also contribute to an increase in mining activities. There are a few effects of mining. First, it impacts the environment. Many of these lorries use regular public roads passing through residential areas. These residents are exposed to daily bauxite dust from lorries, which when suspended into the air permeates into their homes. Next, it gives a big impact on road safety. There have been several road accidents involving lorries transporting bauxite, some of which were fatal. Overloaded lorries will reduce the lifespan of road systems or damage the road. Those who are paid by trips would risk their life and the lives of other road users by speeding or driving recklessly in order to get more daily trips. Besides that, it also affects on the aquatic ecosystem. The continuous degradation of water quality due to unregulated bauxite mining will pose a major impact to the biodiversity of aquatics in the river. Sungai Kuantan is the habitat for aquatic flora and fauna. A high occurrence of sediment in the river will not only increase the turbidity of water but also destroy the population of aquatic flora and fauna. The second environmental issue is logging. Logging is a significant source of forest degradation which maintains some forest cover but causes carbon to be released from disturbed soils and from damaged trees. There are a few causes of logging, and the first one is rural poverty. These communities or tribes are in most cases very poor and entirely depend on the forest for their needs and survival. Some may also illegally obtain wood from the forest and sell them to lumber mills. The second causes is cheaper products in black market. Illegal timber is normally cheaper compared to legal timber in black markets, thereby denying legal operators competitive advantage. Third is the weakness in forest governance. Limited resources, weak institutions, and lax laws have contributed to inadequate law enforcement and the lack of proper land use management. Furthermore, many countries have unclear and poor legal framework. The first effect of logging is economic losses. Illegal logging is said to lower the prices of world timber in the ranges of 7% to 16% annually, causing a global revenue loss of about 15 billion US dollar per year. The second effect is global warming and climate change. Aside from increasing the global temperatures, the practice also accounts for the reduction of the total forest cover area, exposing most of the lands to high temperatures and extreme weather conditions. The third effect is loss of biodiversity. More and more species are unable to survive as the practice denies the habitat the crucial natural interconnectedness. The extensive fragmentation and degradation of the forest have put more animal and plant species on the verge of extinction.
My name is Swairi and I will discuss on the sustainability problem. For the sustainability issue, we choose to discuss on the poverty issue in Malaysia. Recently, the Department of Statistics has revised the new poverty line income by increasing it from 980 ringgit to 2,208 ringgit in 2019. This means that any income a person earns that is under 2,208 ringgit is now considered as living under the poverty line. According to the Department of Statistics Malaysia, the average salary that a Malaysian earns living in the city is around 3,405 ringgit, and those living in the rural areas earn around 2,208 ringgit. Based on the analysis above, we can see that Malaysians that live in the city have income that is barely above the new poverty line income benchmark, and they have a high potential to go under the poverty line if there is a major economic crisis happen. For those who live in the rural areas, this means that majority of them are now currently living under the poverty line and are struggling to survive with their lack of income. One of the causes of poverty in Malaysia is increase in the cost of living. Every year, the increase in the prices of some essential items like food and rent is making it difficult for a person to sustain their basic needs, especially for the lower and middle income workers. For the second factor that causes poverty is workers that have low level of education and skills. Nowadays, any jobs or position in the company that pays a high amount of salary requires workers to have at least a bachelor's degree or a professional certificate with relevant industrial skills. However, in 2019, only 21.3% of workers meet the requirements above. This means that nearly 80% of Malaysians' workforce does not receive any form of higher education, which prevents them to gain opportunities to get higher paying jobs. One of the effects of poverty that we can see is it can lower the standard of living for low and middle income workers. This is because these types of workers will have difficulties to fulfill their basic necessities. They will not have any disposable income that they can use to buy other goods or services that can enhance their quality of life. The second effect of poverty is it will lead to a decrease in physical and mental health of lower income workers. This is because they are constantly being put under the pressure and stress to find new ways that can enable them to generate more income to fulfill their financial obligations, such as rent and loans. In addition, for those workers that work more than 2 jobs, they will always feel exhausted because of the lack of rest that they can get. And I will discuss on the relevant ministries involved in tackling the issue of poverty, logging, and mining. One of the ministries that is responsible in tackling the poverty issue is the Ministry of Urban Wellbeing, Housing and Local Government. This ministry is responsible in solving urban poverty by implementing relevant programs that can eradicate the problem. For rural areas, the issue is being handled by the Ministry of Rural Development. This ministry helps in solving the poverty issue in rural areas. Both the ministries aim to address the poverty issue, improve the quality of life, and well-being of urban and rural communities. For the issue of mining and logging problems, it is being taken care of by the Ministry of Water, Land and Natural Resources. This ministry is responsible in solving all the issues of mining and logging. Recently, this ministry has been renamed into Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. This ministry is responsible in managing and administering the exploration and extraction of natural resources in Malaysia. This ministry is also involved directly in forest management and minerals management. In addition, this ministry is responsible in regulating the exploration and extraction of mineral resources in Malaysia. This is because the ministry wants to prevent any excessive extraction of mineral resources from happening.
I will explain about the solutions to bauxite mining. So there are three main recommendations that we have found. The first one is proper environmental monitoring, which should be conducted on a regular basis. This environmental monitoring should include groundwater levels and quality, water quality, air quality and others. Vigorous monitoring and public reporting programs should be used to demonstrate progress towards and achievement of agreed environmental outcomes, such that it will be possible to take corrective or enforcement action if the environmental outcomes are not achieved. The second recommendation is in terms of transportation. Our suggestion is that every mining site, stockpile and port should install a wheelie washer to reduce the tendency of mud stuck on the wheels. On top of that, washing bays should also ensure that lorries are relatively clean while exiting this mining site. Besides, it's suggested that every bauxite industry player follow Street Land Public Transport Agency guidelines or SPAD guidelines while transporting bauxite from the mining sites to their particular destination. For example, the vehicles should be properly covered to avoid the dispersion of loose bauxite. In order to reduce air pollution in residential areas, a specially gazetted route for transporting bauxite to the stockpiles and port should be designed. Transportation route of lorries should bypass as many residential areas as possible. Lastly, mine rehabilitation program should be strategized to ensure successful rehabilitation is conducted once mining ceases in the area. Proper planning will ensure that mine is not left as an environmental disaster area once mining has stopped. If the company absconds after mining operations cease, the government could use or utilize the bank guarantee or insurance coverage to rehabilitate the mine area. The amount of coverage should be equivalent to the estimated cost of rehabilitation. Besides, the government also could develop project or building on those as mining land rather than be left as mining ponds, which could harm the public. For the solution on proper environmental monitoring and transportation that we are proposed, basically are in line with 3 SDG goals, which are Goal 6, Clean Water and Sanitation, Goal 14, Life Below Water, Goal 15, Life on Land. So our solution generally focus on how to reduce the air and water pollution that happen in Pahang. While for the mine rehabilitation program could fulfill the Goal 13, Climate Action, as we try to avoid any environmental disaster happen in that mining area once the mining has stopped. In terms of Maqasid Syariah, these 3 solutions could have achieved the protection of life, as we want to protect our environment and to protect the safety of the public from any harmful disaster. Next, let me explain about the 3 solutions that we have come out to overcome the logging issue. The first one is empowering and properly training enforcement officers. Fieldwork performed by the enforcement officer is the final and perhaps the most crucial resource for evaluating legality on timber harvesting and trade activity. Therefore, their duties and authority must be granted and ensured by law by giving them an adequate legal framework for proper performance of their jobs. In addition, this officer also must be given a proper training sessions related to legislation, species and wood identification, GPS and others, so they can have a deep knowledge in this particular field. Second solution is amendment to the law by placing land and forest administration under the jurisdiction of the federal government. As we all know, currently under Malaysia's constitution, forest management fall largely under state, not federal control. This has led to economic interests being prioritized over environment and right of people. There are certain state governments who are using their forests as ATM or shortcut for money. Therefore, by amending this law, it gives more power to the federal government in terms of giving permits for logging and other forest activities, rather than limited only to making policy and monitoring. Lastly is donate and spread the word. Nowadays, there are a lot of NGOs in Malaysia that are working to make Malaysia green again, such as Global Environment Centre and Malaysia Nature Society. What government could do is, by making monetary donation of funding campaigns to these NGOs, so they can spread more awareness about the impact of logging, maybe through blogs, social media, political groups, community programs and others. Our three proposed solutions on this logging issue are actually could achieve 3 SDGs, which are Goal 12, Responsible Consumption and Production, Goal 13, Climate Action, and Goal 15, Life on Land. All these 3 goals that we aim to achieve are basically to make sure that our forest and environment is being protected and sustainable in the future. In terms of Maqasid Syariah, our recommendation could fulfill the protection of life as we aim to protect the trees and conserve the forest and nature in order to ensure our future.
Poverty is one of the most serious problems faced by almost every country. That is why the number one goal of SDG is no poverty. To eradicate poverty, there are 2 suggested solutions that we find to be the most beneficial. The first solution is to properly distribute zakat. The main purpose of zakat is to help those in need, which we call asnaf. However, the distribution of zakat is quite inefficient in our country. The main reason is the asnaf would have to apply for zakat directly. This has caused those who have no access or no knowledge of the application to not receive zakat, in which is quite in the majority, as most of the poverty-induced people has no internet connection. Zakat can also fulfill the protection of religion aspect of the Maqasid Syariah, as zakat is one of the pillars of Islam. By paying zakat, we are fulfilling Allah's obligation. The second solution is to loosen the job application requirements. Most jobs nowadays have a requirement of at least SPM certification. Most of the people in poverty does not have the resources to even go to school, so the SPM certification would be non-existent. By lowering the standards of the job opportunity, those in poverty might have a chance in securing at least a minimum wage job. Doing this can also fulfill the protection of wealth in the Maqasid Syariah, as the wealth of those in poverty can be secured.
Conclude, Allah stated in Surah Ar-Rum verse 41, A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim, Zuharal fasadu fil barri wal bahri bima kasabat aydin nas liyudhiqahum ba'dalladhi 'amilu la'allahum yarji'un. Corruption has spread on land and sea as a result of what people's hand have done, so that Allah may cause them to taste the consequences of some of their deeds, and perhaps they might return to the right path. So in this ayah, it is clearly stated that Allah will punish whoever do harm on the environment, and let us take care of our environment. For sustainability, which is about poverty, Allah stated in Surah Al-Muddathir verse 42 to 44, A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim, ma salakakum fi saqar, qalu lam nakum minal musallin wa lam nakun nut'imul miskin. What has landed you in hell? They reply, we were not of those who prayed, nor did we feed the poor. Based on this verse, Islam teaches us to always help the poor people, help to feed the poor, and we always have to include them in the society.